it's so beautiful just to see what's happened the last 4 years. I look back and I think about just the unknown that I was stepping into when when Faith was pregnant with Ellie, and how much I've grown in that 4 years and how much growing I still have to do, because being a dad never stops. Right. It never stops. It's always, it just grows and grows and grows.
And life changes.
Yeah. I mean, both of them. Have fun with both. Yeah. It don't matter. There's plenty of, you don't climb, but you don't like to climb, right?
I like to sit on the ground,
right.
Really.
Yeah, so shotgun might be a thing.
We'll just go ahead and start here, because I think you guys were just having the most dad conversation there has ever been.
That's what this is all about, right?
Talking about the animals coming in your yard and stuff. So we're just going to start here. Welcome back to the Conversations
in the backyard
of Faith.
of his grandchildren.
Yeah. But yeah, so today we're talking about what does it look like being a father, a Christian father. Yeah, so that's where we're at today. We got our same crew as our last episode. My name's Adam Rogers. I'm here with Pastor Terry Rogers, Lamont, and Chris. And we're just going to talk about what being a good, godly father looks like.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I think what's super cool about this table, we have different places of parenting and generations of parenting. From how many years, I guess, who's your oldest? What's your oldest child?
He's 40.
So you got 40 range, 30?
Yep.
Is your wife 30?
29.
29, okay, close to 30. Faith, don't watch this and get mad. So
She'll
almost,
be 30 this year, though.
I thought it was, okay.
December.
Okay, I'm good then. All right, so I thought
6
it
months
was.
away.
30, 5 almost.
Almost 5.
My man.
Come on, somebody. -2 months.
That's what he's doing. He's trying to get that one.
8
Come
months.
on.
Yeah.
You got 8 months in. You got 8 months.
8 months in. Yeah, today is May 21st. You'll be watching this later. But today is May 21st, and we're exactly a month away from the due date.
You'll be a dad by the time this episode releases.
I already am a dad.
You are.
That's true.
That's true.
No, but
This would be good to come out around Father's Day.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it probably
cool.
will be around that time that it'll come out. So super cool.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, we're talking about it today. Again, welcome, Conversations of Faith. So glad you guys have tuned in. If you have not yet, make sure you are subscribing, liking, sharing this podcast. It's new, so we want to get the word around, and we'd love for you to rate it. Give us a 5-star review. I'm hoping people do that, because I actually do want to give shout-outs to people who give us those reviews. So, do that if you would. So we'll be able to do that in the future podcast, because we will be released by them. But being a godly father, it's so needed. Love to open with a passage. Today I'm going to go to Joshua 24, verses 14 and 15. Now therefore fear the Lord, serve him in sincerity and in truth. Put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. If it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But this is it. But as for me and my house,
Serve the Lord.
Come on, somebody finish it. We will serve the Lord. Yeah. So again, so we're talking about it, man. One of the things I love about this passage is the fact that we see, again, not letting what our earlier father, did stop you from being a godly father and making the right choice. So we'll talk about it today. I think we have some amazing fathers around this table. And one more thing, we'll go ahead and say, disclaimer, we've screwed it up just like every other father has and every other parent has. And so we always want to learn from that. So if you are a new dad, Adam, take good notes today. Learn from our mistakes. But again, being a godly father, Billy Graham said this: a good father is one of the most unsung, unpraised, unnoticed, and yet one of the most valuable assets in our society. I'm going to say that again. A good father is one of the most unsung, unpraised, unnoticed, and yet one of the most valuable assets in our society. Wow. And I have discovered that again, the importance of fatherhood, and we love to do this here. We love to honor our fathers. We'll be doing that on Father's Day. I think I feel like a lot of times in church, especially Mother's Day, y'all are the greatest. Man, we honor them, we love them, and then we beat the dads up, smack them around,
Get it together.
smack them around on Father's Day, and tell them they're the worst, and to get it together. But we hope what we do again will bring honor and also challenge everyone to step up, do better, and do more. But again, I'm thankful for the fathers that I have in my life. I have one of the best in the world. He's with Jesus.
Great guy.
And he amazing. Cannot wait to hang out with him again in glory. So again, I am thankful for the father that I had. I love that he did the Joshua choice. He made that example, set that.
Yep.
I want to follow, in suit. But again, Godly Father today, man. Guys, jump in. Let's talk about it. What's on your heart, man, when you have this conversation?
Can we, before we really jump into it too much, I think it'd be cool, whether it's with your dad or a story of being a dad. It can be a fun story. It can be a serious story or something, but just something that stands out to you, that makes you think of your dad, or something that makes you think about being a father. It's just something fun. We could take a second, think about it, and we can.
I have a whole lot of stories about my father and how he treated us. I can remember in the summertime they had this little pool, and my sister and I were just little, and I can remember him going out after our lunch on Sundays, and he would take us out there and we'd play in that little bitty pool, and he'd play with us and roll around with us and, all those kind of things. And I still have that memory. That would be almost 65 years ago. And then I have the memory of him and my uncle using me and my cousin as their rabbit dogs, because my aunt and my mother made them get rid of those rabbit dogs, and so they put us in the honeysuckles and in the briars and all that, and used us as their hunting dogs. So there's a whole lot of issues.
That's why you have kids, right?
Yeah, and my dad in those days. Now you probably go to jail for this today, but we went swimming. Well, I was little, and they wanted to teach me how to swim so I wouldn't drown. And so my dad just threw me in Saluda River and said, "Swim, boy, swim."
Yeah.
And so I'm just dog paddling, going and floating down the river. And he goes down and catches me and pulls me back and puts me back in till I swim. And
That's awesome.
so, you have all those neat little stories that come to mind when you're thinking of your dad. I'm like you. I had a great Christian dad. Loved the Lord with all of his heart, and Christian mother too. So I was blessed on both sides of that.
Right. Yeah, we both, grew up. Our dads knew each other, and it's kind of cool to be sitting at the table with you, being another generation down from that. So again, and that's in a large part because of what our fathers did and the example that they set. Man, a lot of things I could say about my dad, but I guess I love the fact that he could find value. He would see the value in things, and he did that so well. He did it in people. He did it in things. I remember, if you know my dad, he was an auctioneer. He could look at something and tell you what it was worth. He didn't have Google. He knew what it was worth because, again, the experience he said, but he saw it in people as well. And he would continually, do things, again, in people's lives to be able to, again, help them along the way on their journey. And I remember I worked one summer at the mill. He worked at J.P. Stevens Dunning plant for 40-plus years, and I worked there for a summer. And so I just got to see him really, I guess, no other better word, I say he pastored that mill.
Yeah.
And everybody always says, is your dad a pastor or whatever? And he was never a pastor of a church, but I watched him pastor that mill. Where he would at that meal, pray with people, introduce them to Jesus, sow into their life, help them make it to the next, paycheck. Man, just a lot of things. So again, just when I think about Dad, I just think about the love that he had for others and how he saw the value.
Yeah, I knew your dad.
Yeah.
When he worked in that mill.
Right.
I worked there a couple of years while I'm going to college, working my way through school, and I would see him on a regular basis.
Wow.
Depends upon which shift I worked on, whether it's second or third shift. But he was always there. He's always praying with people, helping people. And it
was wild.
It was really neat to see a true man of God living the life beyond the four walls of the church.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that, I just had this conversation recently with someone about marketplace ministry, and they thought that their ministry was going to look different than what it looked. And I was like, again, it's wherever we're supposed to be. And again, Daddy, I got to see him do that in a meal setting. And man, I'm telling you, it was people came to him for counseling. My man didn't finish school. Didn't finish school, but man, he counseled. He gave godly wisdom, and again, did a lot of those things. So I'm thankful for, of course, my dad.
Yeah, I'll go into mine. Then it actually was super recent. Obviously, we're more in the phase of life when where like you're not like it's not like that father-son relationship as much anymore. We're friends now, But this is very recent, and it's a lot of things happened like this growing up where, you'd go on a run or something like that, and this ties into what you're saying, so that's where I'm going with it. But there was a couple weeks ago, we were here working, and you were like, all right, man, I'm going to go on a run real quick. I'll be back. And I was like, all right. And I kid you not, I'm sitting there, and it's been like an hour and a half or 2 hours. I was like, this Joker's running, bro. I didn't know he was training for a marathon.
Either running or passed out.
And so I texted him. I was like, hey, bro, you good? And he didn't text me back, so I called him. He was like, hey, man, I'm just talking to somebody. And I was like, okay. And he gets back, and I think it's a lot of that came around when we would go out to eat growing up or whatever. It was like, Dad's off talking to somebody. It's because you weren't afraid to start that conversation. Yeah. And I've heard you preach more messages than I can count. But even more so than that, I've seen you have those conversations with people and just be open to what the Lord wants to do on and off the stage. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I'll share a couple stories of. So if you know my dad, which a couple of y'all do, but everybody always thought that my dad was the most serious person.
Yeah.
Like, he was known as the principal of the church to a lot of kids. Like, if you're going to the principal's office, that means you're going to my dad's office. And it's so funny to me that there's so many stories of us at the pool at our house of where my dad would get on a raft and we would do this thing called float tag. Mm-hmm. And he's the one that's trying to flip every single kid over and shove them under the water so that he was not getting tagged. Mm-hmm. And just laughing, cutting up about it. And so it's so funny to have this perspective of people thinking that my dad's the most serious person when he is literally one of the most lighthearted, funniest people. Adam, you used to come over to my house all the time, and you've seen that side of my dad where he's like not serious at all. And it's just so funny. But at the same time, thinking about when I was younger, my dad would take extra. So he is a teacher. He was a teacher. He's retired now, but he was a teacher. But he would take extra summer jobs through the school system, do extra things to make sure that we were always taken care of. Yeah. And so he didn't necessarily ask my mom to. He didn't want her to take extra jobs. He wanted to take the extra jobs. He wanted to take that responsibility of leading his family. Yeah. And that's what a father should do.
Amen.
They need to take responsibility of their household. And I saw a great example of that with my dad.
So cool.
That idea of the provider protector, which dads do. And, we can be serious sometimes. Yep. But we can have a lot of fun, too, with our children. We're at a kind of a different level than you two guys are because not only are we dads, but we're grandfathers, too. Come on. And so, I'm friends with my sons. Don't you mess with my grandchildren. I don't care who you are. I'm still big enough to take you to the woodshed. Grandchildren are a whole different thing. And, you try to help, I know you do, try to help your children raise your grandchildren in a way in a day and time in which we live, which is even more difficult than our day and time, I think, in a way that will help that child not only survive life ahead, but thrive in that life. Yeah. And so that's that's the place that
That's so
you
good.
know grandfathers need to be. I think.
Right. That's so cool. Yeah, I think, you've hit on, you just said two of the things that are in my notes as far as when I was putting together some thoughts as far as what does it look like to be a godly father? What are some of the roles that we have? And I think what's cool about parenting as a whole, you can see this, parts of this in motherhood, parts of it in fatherhood, but I believe both of those can reveal pictures of who God is. So when we see him, as a provider, again, that's one of the areas where we would more typically, as men, gear up and step in. And so, provision is one of those things we were just talking about deer hunting earlier, but that is part of like what's in you as a dude, as I want to provide, I want to go out and kill something, eat it, and every time we're grilling burgers at the house, if it was one of the actual deer that I shot, I'm going to bring it up and we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to tell the story about, man, what was happening that day, and man, the deer
tree.
coming out. I was sitting right there, man, and I did all that for you, man. And so, but again, that's geared up in us. But that comes from somewhere. That comes from somewhere, and we just celebrated moms, but just even like when you see a mom nurturing, and that comes from somewhere.
Yeah,
that comes from a heavenly Father. So again, one of the things that I love about being a father is that we get an example, or get an opportunity, I guess you should say, to be able to represent the greatest example. And again, that is in Christ. And provision is one of those things, I guess, that comes to mind when I think about, what are we called to do?
I think it's kind of neat that men are the storytellers many times of the families. And we tell these stories in ways in which the girls in our family are looking for a man like their father, and the boys are looking for a life that emulates their father. And so when we tell the stories of our deer hunting and things like that, and the fun that goes on, I know my kids, they used to kid me. They said, "Daddy, did you get some reading done in the tree today?"
Yeah.
And because I'd take my Bible and
Absolutely.
I've been in the tree and reading my Bible and look up and there's 15 deer down there. So I'm going, okay. So, it's,
Where was that? I'd like to just take me there.
you really want to
I
know?
want to go. Yeah.
That was over at Ennery.
Okay.
So,
okay.
yeah.
I want to be in on that.
But, yeah, the part of telling stories is part of what men are about, to help their children to learn lots of different things. And we use the example of deer hunting, but that's the example of the husband being a good provider.
Yeah.
And for a girl to look for a husband that's not lazy, but look for one that's going to be a good provider for her and her children. And then for the young man, this is how I want to be. I want to be the provider or the protector, either way.
That's so cool. So cool. You guys want to jump in and just share any thoughts as far as that? I think, from my end, sitting here, what's cool is I get to, watch you, again, be a father, an amazing one. By the way, I've seen you grow in that. For those of you who don't know, we have been living together for the last 2 years, and we built a home, lived with them during that process. They're building a home, living with us in that process. So it's been cool. I've been able to watch in these last couple of years you grow as a dad, and see a heart to want to improve in that and go forward there. And dude, fired up about you guys have one coming here real soon, and so that's going to be amazing. As dads, or newer, soon to be, are there certain areas of pressure that maybe you feel that as a dad maybe we can help lessen, or today as we talk about it, the pressures that may be self-induced versus the world-induced, or just as a whole? What as newer dads, soon to be dads, what's on your heart in that area?
I'll say this just from, I've got 2 little girls, and when Ellie came along, she's our oldest, who's 4, almost 5, like immediately, like my heart just exploded for her. Fast forward 2 years, Eliza comes along, and I actually remember making this statement to Faith of, I don't feel like I have a connection with her. And it was just weird. And I feel like a lot of that was me putting pressure on myself to try to be the same dad to Eliza that I am to Ellie. Yeah. But I think one of the biggest things I could encourage, dads of multiple parents is I'm a different dad to Eliza and a different dad to Ellie.
Well, they're different children, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
You
what
have
does
to.
that mean? What does that mean? I still love them equally.
Yeah.
But I look at Ellie and I know that she responds differently when I talk to her. Eliza, she's going to respond differently based on how I talk to her. And so just learning how to navigate those relationships. I think a lot of times as dads, it's easy for us, we are constantly thinking about how we can provide for our family, that we forget to have relationships with our kids sometimes. And so it's taking the time. One of the things that I've had to overcome, I should be point blank honest, is I was working, all day. I would come home. I wouldn't want to spend that time with my wife and kids. I'd want to spend my time with myself. Like, want to decompress from the day of work. When one of the most important things I could do is spend time with my wife, my kids. And so one of the things I've learned is build that relationship.
Yeah.
Like, she's 4 years old, but she acts like she's 30 because I've taken the time, and Faith has taken the time to actually build a legitimate relationship. Yeah. Talk to her, not like she's 4 years old, but talk to her like she actually has a say in what's going on in the house.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so, just as a father, just learning from people like you, such a great father to Adam, to Faith, to Caleb, learning from people like my dad, who's father to me and my two sisters, just taking bits and pieces from what you did, bits and pieces from what my dad did, bits and pieces from other dads I've looked up to in the past, and just figuring out how to wrap all that together and just be the best dad I can be. And it's so beautiful just to see what's happened the last 4 years. I look back and I think about just the unknown that I was stepping into when when Faith was pregnant with Ellie, and how much I've grown in that 4 years and how much growing I still have to do, because being a dad never stops.
Right.
It never stops. It's always, it just grows and grows and grows.
And life changes, too.
Life changes, circumstances change. Yeah. But being a father never changes.
Yeah.
And that's something that, I'm still learning, still navigating, still figuring out how to grow in. But it's so cool. Like, I would say it's easily top 3 of like the best things. I love coming home.
Yeah.
And they just run up to you. Eliza runs up, grabs my leg. Ellie runs up, tries to jump up in my arms. And it's like whatever happened during the day, it doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah.
And that's one of the greatest feelings, in the world.
So cool.
It's good to have regrets.
Yes.
I think something that I've been thinking a lot about. I've had the great privilege to obviously have a great dad and great grandfathers and other just like father figures in my life in the church and just people around me. But one thing that I've had another privilege of is I've always had, and I think it's just because I had an older sister that like I actually got along with. But a lot of my friends have always been a little bit older than I've been. So now in this phase of life where, we're expecting our first kid, we actually have like a lot of friends that are like 2 or 3 kids in and have had the chance to see, and then a lot of other, obviously just being in church, you find yourself like I'm at 26 years, I'm 26. And I find myself at 26 years old, I'm friends Wait, can I tell a funny story? Somebody remind me where I was at so I can jump back in. But some of you may know, my brother, Caleb, my younger brother, we adopted him when he was about 2 years old. I think it's obviously it's like such like a cool day, but like, the gotcha day, where we went and he was officially adopted. It was obviously so cool, but one of my favorite things that happened is they asked like him to stand up. He said like they asked him a couple questions. I'm sure you love that I'm telling the story right now.
I took the stand. I was actually
you took the stand.
I was on the stand, bro. Yeah.
And they asked him like, how old is so-and-so? How old is this? And I can't remember how old I was at the time, which is funny. But he goes, let's just say I was like, he says I was 9, and he's like, they're like, how old's Adam? He goes, 9 years old. And so, the whole thing goes on. They come around, they talk to Faith because she's older than I am, and then they talk to me and they're like, and how old are you, Adam? I'm like, I'm 10. And so we had a different.
That's numbers, bro. That's numbers.
I love it though. It was so funny. In my head, I was like, dude, we're not getting Caleb.
They're not going to improve this thing.
Our answers were supposed to match.
We're supposed to line up.
But okay, so back to where I was at. So I found myself at 26 years old. Like I'm friends with like 40-year-olds, and that's just how it is in the church. You have people that you're just walking through things with, even in different phases of life.
Pretty cool.
But one thing that I think about is having the open environment to ask questions in the house, right?
Yeah.
I think specifically, you hear a lot of people, they're like, basically, I never like tell my kid they're wrong. You know what I mean? Like there's that camp, which is like way too far off to the right, and we have to stand on and in truth, right?
That's good.
But then there's some people that like never just like love on their kids and meet them where they're at, right? So what does it look like fostering that in your home and finding that middle ground where you stand on truth, but you also meet your kids where they're at?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you want to jump in?
No, I'll let you go
you may talk. Well, one of the things, as far as the providing thing, I feel like a lot of times what we've done as dudes, man, let's go kill a deer, let's go eat it, and let's go, be that example. With that, one of the things we're supposed to provide in that home is, again, we're providing, not just providing, paying the bills or whatever. We're providing and setting up opportunity to foster and create that environment in the home. And what we do is, we're providing, first of all, supposed to be providing the greatest example, that someone, one of our kids can look at and actually want to live like they lived. It's one of the things, again, I loved about my dad. Again, didn't get everything right, but I wanted to do what he did as far as when it come, especially to a relationship with the Lord. When I watched him go and pray with others, when I watched him worship the Lord, and sometimes, again, others in the church service were not. Daddy was. So again, he was providing, again, not just for the home, working in the mill. It wasn't always maybe a large income coming in, but he provided so many things, so many other ways. And again, a lot of what was the memories that I have with him are just the times that we would hang. He never got into the fishing or deer hunting with me, but I went to those auctions with him. I hung out with him. I went to the yard sales. I watched him work and I watched him do his thing. So again, just being with him and hanging with him was huge, and building that. And it was in a different era and a different time. And one of the things that we've tried to do in our home that wasn't as, I don't think, as big when I was young, was to try to communicate more and have more conversation. That's one of the things I wish, I don't know if it was a generational thing or what, but I don't feel like we had as many open conversations as we've tried to create with you guys. And so because I think that fosters for us a way to make that relationship even better and even greater. Again, my dad loved me and no doubt about it, but I wish we were able to have more of those deeper conversations. And I don't know why. I don't know if that was a generational thing. What's your thoughts on it?
Well,
you think that's what the...
In my family, we had supper together, and that was our time.
Yeah.
We all had supper at the same time, and when Dad got in, some nights he got in time for that, and sometimes it was a little later than that. And so there was always a conversation going on, always questions being asked. The difference between my family and your family is there was just me and my sister. With you, you had a whole house full of brothers.
You're right.
And they were all vying for attention with your dad. And to have those times that you're thinking about, I think is wonderful to have those moments.
Yeah.
One of the things that I took away from this is that during my time, men would talk to one another. And talk about their families and their children and all that, and they would give advice and those kind of things back and forth. Your dad and my dad were good friends, and they talked every Sunday.
Yeah, they really did.
They were talking and gaining information. Your great uncle was a mentor to me, and then I had some others in the church, men that I looked to, with my dad being the center there. That's cool. So I began to glean from a lot of good dads that are out there that worked hard, were good providers, good protectors, and they loved their children at the same time. And so I not only learned how to hunt, but I learned business from a lot of those guys.
Wow.
My mother, she told my dad, I remember this. I guess I was 14, almost 15. She said, I want you, or CD, that was one of my uncles, to teach him how to work.
Wow.
And so she wanted me to grow up to be not lazy, but a young man who knew how to work, knew how to provide for a family one day, and those kind of things. So she picked two men that she knew would train me, teach me how to be a man, how to be a good, godly man who knew business, who knew how to live life as a godly gentleman.
Yeah.
And so she chose those. But then I look over on your side of the family, and I could see your dad, and I could see your uncle and others that we know, and I glean from them at the same time. That's one of the things sometimes I think we miss in church today, is because we have a lot of things going on, but there's not those times of men talking to men, and women talk a lot. But men don't get together to just talk about, the issues of how to raise children while you're trying to provide. You guys work like dogs, sometimes. And I was always busy. You were talking about coming home. I came home after being gone for a month. Being an Army chaplain, I had to go whenever the troops went. Yeah. And here's Dad one day, and then he comes back a month later, and you go, well, you're back. And how do you re-engage into that family life? So you have to learn those lessons as you're going along, because you don't know what the future is going to have for you. So,
well, I think,
go ahead.
I think that's just like you going and just like watching these guys live their lives. That's discipleship.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think sometimes I'll say this. I think so. I went through a period in high school, and actually it started in middle school, where I had a very heavy struggle with an addiction to pornography. And so when that came out, it wasn't like hey man, you know what? Like, you don't get the Wi-Fi password, which I didn't get the Wi-Fi password anymore. But it wasn't just like hey, you don't get the Wi-Fi password anymore. Maybe in 3 months I might feel like I can share it with you again. There was, because that's right. That's essentially you would just be grounding somebody at that point, right? And that's not how you walk through something with somebody. So I think that period of my life. I mean, I think being a pastor's son in general, this wasn't like imposed upon me. I don't feel like there was anything that like anybody did to make me feel this way, but there definitely was like this feeling of like, okay, I need to make sure that I've got it all together, because if I don't, like, then I'm gonna mess it up for everybody else, right? And I think that was a moment in my life where that like one big, I mean, I in that moment in time, like obviously I was just like I was stuck in something, but I viewed it as a shortcoming. I viewed it as something where I had just like screwed up, right? And I promise I'll get to where I'm going with this, but. I think in that moment in life where it was like finally like I felt like I could like breathe a breath of fresh air again. That was where something like that like officially broke in my life. Because guess what? The next day I still struggled with those feelings.
Yeah.
The next month I still struggled with those feelings. Now today, so many years later, I do feel like the Lord has cleansed me, and I don't struggle with those same feelings anymore. But those open conversations of just like, hey man, how are you doing today? Not, hey, no more Wi-Fi for you.
Right.
So I think that those, and I wasn't met with anger when those things happen. So I guess that's really where I want to settle on that, is when there are shortcomings, they can't be met with anger.
Yeah.
Right.
They have to be met with love and a push in the right direction. Yeah.
So I actually have pulled up on my Bible here, Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, where it says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath. Instead, bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." Yeah. And about 10 years ago, I actually worked at an after-school program, and I was mainly over 5th grade, and I saw a lot of kids that came from families where they didn't have a father. And it just so happened that those kids struggled the most when it came to school, when it came to discipline, when it came to interactions with other kids. And I think one of the most important things that we can do as a father is, of course, stay involved in our kids' life. But what you were saying, Adam, with not just cracking down the judgment, not just cracking down the this is what you did this ain't wrong, like shame on you. No, like, yes, we are supposed to discipline and instruct them based on what the scripture says. But what is the beginning of verse 4 says? Do not provoke your children to wrath. And so the way that, I've started at least trying to do this with Ellie and Eliza is saying, listen, this is what you did. This was wrong. We're not going to do it again. Letting them process that and then saying, but I love you so much. I love you so much. And just hugging them and kissing them and letting them know that while they're crying, no, I love you. And they I love you too. But I think that's so important because it shows the correction, but also shows the love in the midst of that correction too, which is so vital for the growth of younger kids into making them who they can be when they're in, our 20s, our 30s.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's good. Yeah, it's one of the things I was going to talk about, and you guys set it up perfectly, is that as a father, we got to learn to make sure we partner correction and affection well, because, we a lot of times, again, when parenting's done right, in a household where there's a mother and a father, both of them are sharing in both of those things. But what can happen is, the father becomes the one who corrects, and the mother is the one who gives the affection, and it causes a complete messed up balance in how that works. And so one of my, I guess my encouragements to parents often is make sure you both are given correction and affection equally. And it works whether it's a single parent home, 2 household parents, there has to be both of those in that house, and we probably have maybe tendencies to gear more towards one or the other, just by how we have our makeup and our DNA and those sort of things. But we have to be, if it doesn't come natural, you have to be intentional in those areas. And so that's one of the things I'll say. Make sure you are doing both of those. And again, it's helped a lot of homes where just getting the mom and dad on the same page, and then it keeps the children from being able to play mom and daddy against each other. I can go here and get this or that. When you get on the same page, but again, as fathers, we have to do both. And what's cool is, again, when we go back to, is that our Father has done that so well.
Yes.
He has done that. So he loves us better than anybody else, but he also chases those he loves. He corrects he corrects the ones that he loves. And so as earthly fathers, I feel like a lot of times we get put in a category we have to be the corrector, but we get to do both in this. And I think the correction comes from a place, and is more well received when you have been more affectionate. And again, there's a reason why, again, I'm doing this. And not because I want to make life miserable for you. I hate you, but because I love you. And again, he chases as he loves. And it's because of, and it's helped me with my understanding of God. As my Father, again, I see him now not as the one who I used to see him as up on the throne, ready to pounce when I messed up, but because he loves me when I do miss it, he corrects me and brings me back in. So again, partnering those two things together, well, I will encourage every father in this table, myself, everyone watching, try to get to the place where you do both of those and do them, very intentional, and do those as well as you can.
We learned real quickly as our kids were growing up. We had 2 boys and a girl. The girl's a redhead, so that makes everything different. So anyhow, when our children were growing up, we made a decision that we would not correct them with our hands. And so we had a little paddle, and if they did something, and this was just for a certain time period, because once a child gets beyond that time period, you have to discipline them in different ways.
Right.
And so when they were of a certain age, we would paddle them. And so what we would do is when they did something wrong, we made them go to their room and we gave them 3 whacks, pop, 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 with a little thing. And so that corrected them, but we never put our hands on them because it's hard to correct and love with the same hands. Doing counseling now and other things, when a child has been abused with a person's hand, they'll withdraw when you reach out to touch them. You can see that many times. And so we never used our hands to do that. So that helped us. A neat little story that goes along with that. We were living in Korea at that time, and we had this closet. And we came home from church, and I was doing general Protestant services at that time. So we had a nice little altar, and it had the Bible up there, and it had a cross in there, and on either side, it had these 2 candles. Candles were lit for the service, and they were put out at the end of the service. And so anyhow, one Sunday we came home from church, and Adam and Allie decided that they were going to have a worship service upstairs in that cabinet. So they got up there and they set up the cross, and they had their little Bible out there, and it was sitting up on this box. And then they got 2 candles and put them up there, and they lit the 2 candles, and one of the candles fell over. And so it started a fire in there. Allie comes running downstairs, and we knew something was wrong when she grabbed the fire extinguisher, and she was going to go upstairs, and she's probably 6 years old at that time.
So the fire extinguisher's as big as she is.
Yeah,
Trained well,
she's taking that thing up
You
there.
trained them well, though, bro. That's
Yeah,
good. That's good.
And so anyhow,
Fire drill.
after we got the fire put out and all that sort of stuff, they knew they had to go to their room, and they were going to get paddled for it. So I went in and we paddled. We talked to Adam, told him what went wrong, and like that. And so we still gave him the little paddling. And then we went in there to talk to Allie. And so we went in there, and she was standing up against the bed. And we said, Allie, you know what you did wrong? She said, yes, sir. Started a fire. And I said, yeah. And I said, you are doing a right thing having a worship service, but you're not supposed to do that in a closet with a lot of stuff that'll burn. And she said, I know, Daddy. And I said, you still going to get your 3 whacks? And she said, okay. And she turned around, and her butt was square. Absolutely square. She'd taken a book and put it back here, and she was not going to get whacked. She's a pretty smart gal. And so, but they have to have that discipline, and you got to have grace.
Yeah.
But you also have to have discipline with them. And that doesn't mean that you have to just beat the snot out of them or, take, in our days, long hickories and just wear them out till you have no hickory stick or anything like that. It means a whole lot more than that, especially when a dad comes in and he talks about what was going on, and then he brings some correction. And then you go on and you forgive those things. But you don't forget because you have lessons to teach down the road that will help them continually. So.
Can I take it one step further, too? I think after that, it's important that we speak what we see in them as their potential. I think it's easy to remember those things, to teach those lessons and teach them from a perspective of, you did this, we're not going to do that. Instead, we can use that and say, this is who you are. This is what you can do. This is what you're going to do.
So you're taking it from discipline to discipleship?
Correct. Yep.
Come on, somebody.
Yep. And I think that's so important from a father's perspective because, again, that's the role that we play in the house, is to lead.
Bless you.
Is to lead others, disciple our family, and that's a perfect way to do it, is to just speak into their potential. Speak in, because I don't think that's done enough.
It's
I don't think it's done enough.
You need to talk with your children.
Yeah.
You need to keep that communication
So important.
going at all times. At least I think so.
No,
and you guys have all kind of things that are fighting against you. You talked about pornography. When I was growing up, we didn't have computers.
Yeah.
It's not that long ago
thankful
either.
we didn't have them.
But we didn't have computers, and we didn't have all this other stuff that you've got. There was no such thing as Wi-Fi. And so we didn't get in that kind of trouble because we wasn't in front of it. And you can get secretively into things that we never thought about in our day and time. I mean, man, if you saw a Playboy book, and in a Christian home, you go, oh, no, I'm not going to get involved in that, because it was right out there. But this, you can get behind the screen and, mom and dad didn't know what you're doing many times. So it's dangerous. And in this day and time, there's as many young girls getting into pornography as there are young boys.
Yeah.
And what that's doing subliminally and subconsciously is it's telling them who they can be.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're failing to tell them who they can be.
Right.
And I think that's why it's so
It's
important.
letting the world tell them what they are instead of us.
Because at the end of the day, somebody's going to tell them their potential, whether it's right or wrong. Somebody's going to tell them who they can be.
Yeah.
It's best to come from us as fathers.
Yeah.
That's what discipleship's about.
And that's one of the things, again, I love that, again, we are seeing, I believe, more in this generation. We're seeing the more need for it. And it is that communication that goes with the discipleship or with the correction. Because, again, I grew up, not a paddle, a belt. And so we
I remember the belt.
We had a belt. And we had a belt in the Rogers home, and it sat in a can beside my dad's chair. And so... and it disappeared, and I'm still the one who's been blamed for that disappearing. And I did not do it. I'm in the Lord's house right now recording this podcast. Someone had Bibles all around me. I did not do that. So again, one of the other brothers in the Rogers household got rid of that belt. So it wasn't me. So again, I would confess that right now if it was me. But
I can kind of imagine which one it was. But
I think I knew who it was. I think I knew who it was. But again, this fathering thing it's not easy.
No, it's not.
It's a lot of hard work. But man, I'm telling you, it would be worth every investment, every seed of time, love that you sow. And it is cool when you do get to see the fruit of those things. And again, I'm sitting at the table with a son, with a son-in-law. I mean, I'm with people that you've sown into, and it is a blessing. So it's worth it. And I'll just say this, pour into it, do it, step into that, don't stop. Even when it's hard, even when it's not easy and it doesn't come natural again. And one of the things I love that we're hearing, and one of the reasons we're even doing this, is that we can learn from those who have been where we want to go. Yeah. And so it's one of the great things about, I believe, parenting, about when it comes to any of these situations, is trying to, again, not just always figure it out on your own. One of the things I love is that we're seeing here is community. Is taking place. We have small groups here at our church, and we had someone in our church reach out and was just very encouraging about just what they have seen recently, as far as just the community that's happening, whether it's through dads getting together around a table talking about life, encouraging one another, moms getting together praying, or whatever that looks like. Sometimes it's in a couples setting, but whatever that is, we need each other. So all you guys, like when it does get hard, and y'all know this, there's an open door to come for that. But if you're a dad out there watching today, if you're checking this out and you're trying to be like, what do I do? Reach out to somebody. Don't try to figure out this thing. Don't put pressure on yourself that doesn't need to be there. Get people around you, and always go back to Scripture. Look to the Father who has always done it right, because none of us have. Nope. You won't either. So again, but again, we have a Father who has always done it right every time. And one of the things I love is the story of the prodigal son. Yeah. I think that story has misnamed. I think it should be called not the prodigal son, but the loving father, because that's who the focus needs to be on. The son messed it up, but you see a father who loved him, was waiting on him, embraced him, and again restored him. And that's the kind of God that we serve today. That's the Father who does this thing right. True. So get better than anybody else.
The scripture that has helped me with that.
Yeah.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not unto your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path, fathers.
Amen. Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. It's good. Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. Great word. Great word. Questions, thoughts, as far as we get ready to wrap this thing up. I know time slips away so fast. We look forward to getting around, having more conversations of faith. But on the area of fatherhood,
I'll just double down on what you said. I think it's so easy for guys to think that they're by themselves and that they have to do it alone. And just to reiterate, we absolutely don't have to do it by ourselves. Yeah, absolutely. That's why church is so important, because you get involved in a community of other people that can help you and push you and encourage you. So lean into that. Yeah. Lean into that.
I agree.
That's good.
That's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anything else, bro?
I I think we're good.
So you got this thing figured out. So when little man shows up next month, you're good. You don't have any. You're ready to roll.
Yeah, I'm really. I've got everything. I've got all the plans in place, and really, there's nothing that could disrupt that. Everything's going to go exactly how I want it to go. So.
Oh, just wait.
Day one.
I love it, man. Hey,
You know your mother's going to hear that, and she's going to come straighten you out.
yes, she is. Yes, she is.
Let's see what happens with the first diaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
us,
first
Lord.
diaper is
First diaper
brutal,
took me about
dude.
8 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an 8-minute video of the first diaper change.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're ready
I've
to do
seen
the
that.
second diaper by the time you get it finished.
Second diaper is about 2 minutes.
And just remember, in my days, you had to do it like this. You know, you had a safety pin, and you stuck
that's right.
and you didn't want to stick the child, no matter what you did.
It's terrifying.
That's not of the Lord, bro. That's not of the Lord, man. Fatherhood, it's real, it's raw, but again, look to the one who's done it right every time. The Father up above, learn from him, grow from him. Celebrate the things that show up that look like him. When you see something in Scripture that he's doing that you're not, man, be intentional about wanting to walk that out, do that better. Again, and you're making a difference. Again, it's worth it. Stay in this thing. Don't give up. Don't miss out. We appreciate all the fathers, again, who are, again, out there making a difference. And, again, we believe, again, eternal difference. And from what we open up with, man, make the choice. Make the Joshua choice. If you're watching this and you haven't made that choice yet to say, hey, this house, this is what we're going to do. And it does start with the fathers.
Yeah,
it starts
absolutely.
with us. If you're in that house,
Absolutely.
I'm going to say this how it just, I believe, should be said. If you're in that house, you're responsible.
Yep.
We're responsible. I was responsible for you.
Yeah.
To the time to where, again, you became responsible for yourself, but we're responsible. But again, making those Joshua choices are so worth it. And again, in the end, when you get to see the fruit of that, oh, man, it's so good.
Yep.
It's so beautiful. Again, we love you. Man, thanks for being a part of this conversation today. We're looking forward to having the next one.
Yep.
And in the meantime, don't forget, like, subscribe, share. Anything else? Any final words?
Yeah, I think we're good to go. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we said this in the last episode. We'll say it again. This is the last episode that we're pre-recording before we start putting stuff out. So after this episode comes out, we'll be able to interact with you guys a little bit more and be able to see what you have to say, and we'll be able to have some conversations and talk to you guys about some of
Yeah,
those
what do you want
things.
to talk about? What do you
Yeah.
want to discuss? Let us know, and we'd love to do it, man.
Sounds good.
Thank you guys for being around this table, man. This is always, I look forward to this. I've looked forward to, ever since we started this, I look forward to the next time we get to hang out. Look forward to hanging out with you guys again, have another conversation of faith.